My mother-in-law made me drink cow urine every day and night for a male child. I never thought I'd be sharing this story on Reddit, but after years of therapy and finally divorcing my husband, I feel ready to talk about the 3 years of hell I endured at the hands of my mother-in-law. This might sound unbelievable, but every word is true, and I have the medical records to prove the physical toll it took on my body. I met Raj during our residency at a hospital in Chicago. He was brilliant, kind, and everything I wanted in a partner. We dated for 2 years before getting married in a beautiful ceremony that blended both our cultures. I'm American and he's Indian, though he was born and raised in the US. His parents had moved here in the 1980s, but remained deeply traditional. The problem started after our first year of marriage when we hadn't yet conceived. His mother, who I'll call Mira, began dropping hints about grandchildren. At first, it was subtle, forwarding articles about fertility, suggesting specific foods, recommending yoga poses. I didn't mind because I wanted children too, and I appreciated what I thought was her concern. Everything changed when I suffered a miscarriage in our 2nd year of marriage. Instead of support, Mira blamed me. She claimed it happened because I wasn't following proper traditional practices. That's when she introduced what she called the guaranteed solution: drinking cow urine twice daily. She claimed it was an ancient practice that ensured male children and prevented miscarriages. I initially laughed it off, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. She arrived at our house the next day with a glass bottle filled with yellowish liquid. She had contacts at a local farm and had specially collected it from their most blessed cow. The liquid had been purified through some ritual she wouldn't explain. When I refused, she broke down crying, accusing me of disrespecting their culture and traditions. This is where I blame myself for what followed. Instead of standing firm, I gave in to keep the peace. Raj, my husband, stayed neutral at first. He said I didn't have to do it, but he also wouldn't tell his mother to stop. He claimed he was caught between 2 worlds and didn't want to disrespect either. Looking back, his passivity was as damaging as his mother's actions. The routine was horrific. Every morning at 6 a.m., Mira would arrive at our house with a fresh bottle. She would pour exactly 100 milliliters into a copper cup and watch me drink it. She claimed copper enhanced the spiritual properties. The taste was indescribable, bitter, pungent, and rancid. No amount of mouthwash could remove it. Then again at 9 p.m., another 100 milliliters before bed. If I threw up, she made me drink more, claiming the blessing was rejected by my impure body. My health began deteriorating within weeks. I developed persistent nausea, stomach cramps, and severe headaches. My colleagues at the hospital noticed my declining health, but I was too ashamed to explain. I made excuses about stress and working too hard. The worst part was the psychological toll, feeling like I had lost control of my own body, my own choices. Mira's control expanded beyond just the cow urine ritual. She began dictating what I could eat, wear, and do. No cold drinks, no air conditioning, no wearing black clothes, no cutting my hair, no eating non-vegetarian food. Each restriction came with a lengthy explanation about its impact on fertility and having a male child. She checked our refrigerator daily, inspected my wardrobe, and monitored my activities through constant surprise visits. My husband's behavior became increasingly concerning. He started repeating his mother's beliefs, claiming that maybe there was wisdom in these ancient practices. When I showed him research about the health risks of consuming raw animal products, he dismissed modern medicine as Western propaganda. This from a man who was a practicing neurologist. The situation reached its breaking point when I ended up in the emergency room with severe kidney infection and dehydration. Even then, Mira claimed it was because I hadn't been pure enough in following her instructions. She tried to bring her special water to my hospital room. When a nurse caught her, she created a scene about Western medicine destroying Indian culture. My parents, who lived in California, had no idea about what was happening. I had hidden everything out of shame and fear of their reaction. When they finally found out through a concerned colleague who called them, they were horrified. My father, a retired judge, immediately flew to Chicago and threatened legal action against both Raj and his parents for endangering my health. The confrontation that followed revealed the true extent of my in-laws' beliefs. Meera proudly admitted everything, claiming she was helping me become a proper Indian wife. She had countless justifications, stories of other women who had followed her advice and had sons, ancient texts that supposedly proved her methods, and claims about the scientific benefits of cow urine that she had read on WhatsApp groups. What broke me wasn't just the physical abuse, but the realization that my husband had chosen his mother's superstitions over my health and well-being. During family therapy sessions that followed, he admitted he knew the practices were harmful but couldn't bring himself to stand up to his mother. He had been raised to believe that questioning parents was the greatest sin, greater even than watching his wife suffer. The divorce proceedings were ugly. Meera spread rumors in their community about me being an American witch who had seduced her son and then refused to give him children. Some of their relatives actually believed her and sent me threatening messages. The cultural divide that had once seemed manageable had become an unbridgeable chasm. The long-term effects of this ordeal weren't just physical. I developed severe anxiety and trust issues. I had to switch hospitals because I couldn't face my colleagues who had witnessed my decline. I spent months in therapy, working through the trauma and guilt. The guilt was the worst part, feeling like I had failed as a wife, failed to stand up for myself, failed to recognize the red flags early on. Looking back, I see how this situation evolved so gradually that each small compromise seemed reasonable at the time. It started with accepting small traditions, wearing certain colors on specific days, following dietary restrictions during festivals. Each concession led to bigger demands until I found myself drinking cow urine twice daily while my husband stood by silently. The most painful realization was that this wasn't really about having a male child or following traditions. It was about control. Meera had lost control over her son when he married an American woman, and this was her way of reasserting dominance. Every ritual, every restriction was designed to break my spirit and make me submissive. 3 years have passed since I left that situation. I'm now working at a different hospital in Boston, rebuilding my life. I've had extensive therapy and medical treatment to address the physical and emotional damage. My experience has made me particularly attentive to signs of cultural coercion in my patients' lives. I've helped several women recognize and escape similar situations, though none quite as extreme as mine. The aftermath of this experience has changed how I view cultural differences in relationships. While I still believe in respecting traditions, I've learned that culture should never be used as a weapon to harm or control others. There's a difference between preserving heritage and enforcing harmful practices under the guise of tradition. I've chosen to share this story now because I want others to recognize the warning signs I missed. Cultural differences in a marriage require open discussion, mutual respect, and clear boundaries. When tradition becomes a tool for abuse, it's no longer about preserving culture, it's about power and control. Some might ask why I endured this for 3 years. The answer is complicated. There's the gradual nature of abuse, the way it normalizes itself day by day. There's the fear of being seen as culturally insensitive or racist for rejecting traditional practices. There's the hope that love can overcome these challenges, that patience and understanding will eventually prevail. But mostly, there's the insidious way that abuse erodes your sense of self, making you question your own judgment. The healing process has been long and ongoing. I've had to learn to trust my instincts again, to set boundaries without guilt, to recognize that respecting culture doesn't mean accepting abuse. I've also had to forgive myself for staying as long as I did, for not seeking help sooner, for trying to protect my abusers even as they harmed me. Today, I'm sharing my story not to discourage intercultural marriages or to demonize traditional practices. Many such marriages are beautiful examples of cultural harmony. I'm sharing it because abuse can hide behind the mask of tradition, and recognizing that doesn't make you culturally insensitive, it makes you wise. For those wondering about legal consequences, my ex-husband and his mother faced no criminal charges. I chose not to pursue legal action beyond the divorce, partly because I wanted to move on with my life, and partly because proving coercion in cultural practices is incredibly difficult in our legal system. However, the medical records of my hospitalization and subsequent treatments became crucial evidence in securing a favorable divorce settlement. The experience has left me with complex feelings about cultural integration in America. While I still believe in the beauty of cultural exchange and preservation, I'm more aware of how traditional practices can be weaponized to control and harm. It's a delicate balance between respecting cultural differences and recognizing when those differences cross into abuse. As I write this, I'm finally at a place where I can talk about these events without breaking down. I'm sharing this story not for sympathy or revenge, but as a warning and a reminder that abuse can wear many masks, even the mask of tradition and family love. If my experience helps even one person recognize and escape a similar situation, then reliving these memories will have been worth it.